Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 FedEx St. Jude DFS Tactics show. We have a forecast to update to get all the latest information for. We are going to go over the rankings here at Calls. We have a lot to get into. Let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. It's going to give you all of the power at your fingertips to make the most optimal choices for your DFS lineups, give you all of the information you need to hit the winning outright every week. So go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where normally I place research on Monday afternoons around the tournament of the week, previous winners, patterns of those winners. Nothing to do for TPC Southwind for this week, considering the way I collect historical data. We only had 1 year, so nothing this week. But if you want to see the weekly research that I do normally on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and my top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show, so that'll come out over on X later this evening. So if you want to see the players I'm using most often in my lineups, as well as the wagers I've made for this week's FedEx St. Jude, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. It's a wonderful way to start your week of preparation. He continues to update you throughout the week with his own version of recent form and course history. And if you are a subscriber to his article, which is free to do, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show here at Calls, as he is gracious enough to host me and host everyone in a Substack chat. Really recommend that you join us over there. A lot of information, very entertaining. We talk a lot of DFS over there, so if you are not following him over on social media and subscribe to his article, you are really missing out. So I highly suggest you do that. Then lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat is open. I've seen a couple of you in chat already. I'll get to you once the intro is over. But I want to hear from you all. Who's your winner? Who are you targeting? Who are you staying away from? Please answer the poll question, which I'll put up here momentarily. So would love to hear from you all this week and this evening as we start the FedEx Cup playoffs for the PGA Tour. So let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2024 FedEx St. Jude. And we are going to start, as we always do, with an update to the forecast here at Windfinder, the Super Forecast. Good evening, Awaken. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Hope you've had a good week. Great tournament. This is going to be a fun one. Start of the playoffs, obviously. And good segue there, Awaken. Not that you would have known. But the poll question for the week is, considering that some of you really liked the question last week regarding the top 70 and playing their way in and out, we're going to continue that theme here a little bit. How many players outside the top 50 do you think play their way into the BMW for next week? Of course, the BMW is only 50 players. Very, very prestigious, as all 50 players who make the BMW this year will be exempt into all of the signature events for next year. So would love to hear the community's thoughts on that. How many players do you think outside the top 50 play their way into it this week? 0, 1 or 2, 3 or 4, or 5 plus. So please jump into chat with your answer and fill out that question and then say hello in chat. But let's take a quick look at the forecast in Memphis for the FedEx St. Jude. It's important to note that there is no possible wave advantage per se, considering there's only 70 players. They will all go in consecutive order, essentially, from when they start. However, there are two distinct halves, two splits, if you will. The players that are playing earliest on Thursday will play latest on Friday and vice versa. There's no real wave advantage that we can really kind of target. And even if there was a wave, I wouldn't see too much here. Now, yes, it does appear that the Thursday PM gets the best wind, so you could argue that the players who play the latest on Thursday have the best of it. But I would also argue that they probably get the worst of it on Friday, considering that even though the calm winds aren't that high, it's supposed to be very, very gusty tomorrow morning. So I don't see too much of an advantage here. I guess I could argue the Thursday PM or the players that are playing the absolute latest on Thursday would have the best of it, so maybe a minute advantage. But I'm not factoring this in at all into my considerations when I'm filling out lineups this week. And if we zoom out, we take a look at the weekend. Saturday looks much the same, maybe a stray thunder shower, as is custom in the Midwest, but high of a 102. Now, Sunday looks like it tapers off a little bit to only 95. I mean, get out the parka. But very calm throughout most of the day Sunday. It does appear that wind will be a small factor, but not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. It's just going to be hot, humid, mostly dry. I do believe they've gotten some rain today. But mostly hot and humid, so it should be pretty firm, pretty fast, with a little bit of wind in Memphis. So there's a last look at your forecast for Thursday and Friday. Of course, this is a no-cut event anyway, so no real wave advantage to even to think about, I would think. So maybe the Thursday PM would have the best of it, but very negligible. So we'll move to Fantasy National. And of course, as always, I forgot to unstar these players as I was grabbing the last, or the up to the second ownership projections for you all. Let's see. Hey, P, good evening. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Hope you've had a good week. Don't mind me as I am unstarring these players very quickly. We just got back from the Wind Finder forecast. So let's take a quick look at, mostly it would be moderate, but in case the wind does pick up, we'll check the windy filter as well. In the past 2 years, in moderate and windy conditions, your top performers have been Scotty Scheffler, Victor Hovland, Patrick Cantlay, Xander, Wyndham Clark, Jordan Spieth, Rory, Corey Connors, Denny McCarthy, and Adam Scott. And then the other side of that coin, players who have not played as well in the wind, EVR, Tom Hoagie, Tom Kim, a little bit of an asterisk there. I've talked about him several times before. He plays very well in the windiest of conditions, but moderate, he has not been good. Seamus Power, Bobby Mack, only 2 rounds, so be mindful of that. Taylor Pendrith, Billy Horschel, Davis Thompson, Mackenzie Hughes, Jake Knapp, Johnny Vegas on down. Those are the players who have not played that well in the wind. A pretty intricate mixed condition model for this week, so let's not waste any time. Let's just get right into it. And when I say intricate, pretty detailed mixed condition model this week for the St. Jude. There's a lot of ways it could have went. You could use several different filters. So I'll be explaining the metrics that I use and why I used the filters that I have. I'm going to start with off the tee. 5% off the tee when fairways are difficult to hit. Talked about this a little bit Monday and a little bit more extensively Sunday, but these fairways are pretty narrow. And even with players clubbing down sometimes, they're not easy to hit. Even with shorter clubs in hand, there's a little bit of rolling terrain. There's a lot of dog legs here at TPC Southwind, and there's going to be an emphasis, a premium in fairways, as we'll talk about here momentarily. There's going to be a premium on being in the fairway, so only 5%, as I am much more inclined to look at the accuracy portion. But 5% in off the tee when fairways are difficult to hit, 20% in approach, and you'll see that it's in the last 24 rounds. I mean, I just want the immediacy. I mean, who's in really, really good iron form coming into the week this week? With those dog legs, there are going to be some longer approaches. There are some opportunities for players to hit driver. So, it's going to test a player's bag throughout, from driver to wedge. TPC Southwind does. So 20% in strokes gained approach. It might be a slightly heavy-handed, if you will, but that is my preferred metric in terms of golf statistics. It's the players I prefer to look at and favor. So that's a little bit of my bias coming in there as well. I wouldn't go any less than 15%, but I could see an argument that 20 might be a bit too heavy. 5% around the green. And again, I wasn't confident in using any particular filter, not necessarily the difficult to par, because this played very easy last year with the top 70. You don't know for sure it's going to play easy, so I wasn't confident using that filter. I wasn't confident using this filter here with the multiple courses. I'll explain on that metric. Because around the green can also incorporate some sand saves. So it's just around the green in the last 24 rounds. Only 5%. Didn't want to overweight it, but it's going to play a factor. These greens are very small. They're going to get missed, even by players who are hitting their irons well. So I want to see who is able to get up and down, scramble, if you will. You could argue to maybe look at some scrambling too, but I just decided to go with around the green for this week. And then 5% in putting on fast Bermuda greens. If anything, this might be a little bit light. For the longest time today, I had 10% in this. Changed it to 5% because putting is so fickle. Some players are good one week and bad the next and whatnot. I did want to give a little bit of credit to players Aiken, Brandon Todd, and Adam Scott, these traditionally good putters, and especially if they're good on fast Bermuda greens, but I didn't want to overweight it. So 5% in putting on specifically fast Bermuda greens, 15% in fairways gained, and that's where this kind of 5% I took off from the putting. That's where the 5% went, is into the fairways gained. I spent a lot of time, as I mentioned, talking about the fairways Sunday and Monday. And then in conjunction with this metric and filter combination, I just feel I want to emphasize the accuracy. It's going to be important for players to be in the fairway, not necessarily for lift, clean, and place, because that's not going to be in play for TPC Southwind like it was for the Wyndham. But the rough is very difficult to play out of, and players know that, so they should have an extra emphasis on fairway. So I want to see the players who are really, really going to find the fairways this week at TPC Southwind. 15% on fairways when they are difficult to hit. And then 10% in good drives gained, which is a quick reminder. A good drive gained is a player has hit the fairway, or they are able to hit the green in regulation from the rough or the native area, for some of those courses. But you'll notice this filter has multiple courses, not necessarily any fairways or easy to par or anything like that. What this is the filter that I talked about Monday night extensively, and the credit again goes to Gabe for this. These are the courses that have listed Bermuda Rough per the GCSA tournament fact sheet. There were 6 courses that have Bermuda Rough: the Century Plantation course, the Sony Waialae, the Amex, the Stadium course, TPC Craig Ranch hosted the Byron Nelson, Colonial hosted the Charles Schwab, and where we were last week, Sedgefield hosted the Wyndham. Those 6 courses are what is making up this sample size. So 10% on good drives gained, essentially in Bermuda rough is what I'm trying to simulate here. Because Bermuda rough can be pretty difficult to play out of. It is unpredictable. It is very, from what I have heard, it is very uniform throughout the course, meaning that if a player does find the rough, the ball is going to just sink to the bottom of it, and it's going to be difficult to play out of. So 10% good drives gained on courses with specifically Bermuda rough, 10% in birdies gained, and 10% bogey avoidance on courses that are par 70s. Now, most of the time, these are courses with 4 par 3s and 2 par 5s. You will get the occasional course like the Scottish Open that has 5 par 3s and 3 par 5s. But the simulation or the thinking behind this is the emphasis in the par 4s. With only 2 par 5s that players have to take advantage of this week, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on par 4s. And with not very many good scoring opportunities, who can still go low, who can still get a bunch of birdies without a lot of par 5s, and who can avoid bogeys without a lot of par 5s. So that's the thinking behind these two metrics. I wanted to lean more birdies gained because we're playing DFS, and birdies gained is what gets you the points, at least for DraftKings. But I do think bogey avoidance is going to have a pretty significant weighting or say in who is going to play well this week, as TPC Southwind has traditionally been average to difficult, minus last year. So 10% birdies and 10% bogey avoidance when on courses with par 70. And to finalize the mixed condition model, 5% in all par 3s, 15% in all par 4s. These par 4s are pretty evenly split here at TPC Southwind. If we go to the course breakdown just very, very quickly, the par 4s are pretty evenly split. Now, last year it's important to note that this par 4, the 350-4, actually didn't play under 400 yards throughout the entirety of the week at all. They all played over 400, but a pretty even mix here. 6-4, one very long par 4. Even the par 3s, which I'll zoom out for you, even the par 3s are pretty evenly split in terms of the buckets that they fall into in terms of range. And when we looked at, or when I looked at the extreme, or the digging deep into the data, the strokes gained for the par 3s and the par 4s were pretty even. I think exactly 50% of the par 3s fell into 175 to 200, and then it was like 35% was the highest bucket for any of the par 4s. So we're just going to look at total par 3s and total par 4s. Again, no par 5s. There's only 2 of them here. They are pretty darn mitigated in terms of importance around TPC Southwind. You have to play the par 4s very well if you're going to contend at the St. Jude. So there's a look at the mixed condition model for this week. Hopefully I've given you a solid explanation on why I have what I have in the model. Perhaps maybe some areas where I could be weak if some of these percentages are off, or if I needed to emphasize something or de-emphasize something. If greens gained is a bigger deal than what I'm accounting for, maybe that's something. But felt pretty good with this mixed condition model as I got more confident, or felt pretty good as I started finishing it up. Just kind of moved some percentages around. But there's a look at the model for this week, and with that, we will move to Microsoft Excel, the reveal of my rankings. And as a quick reminder to those of you who are new viewers, for your information, if you're a new viewer, quick reminder if you are a returning viewer, I can't talk. My rankings are based on 3 criteria. The FNGC rank, which is a straight numerical ranking based on the mixed condition model that we just covered, the metrics and the percentages in those metrics. So Fantasy National will spit out a ranking based on that. Course value is an attempt at giving a player a numerical value based on how well they have played that course in the past 5 years. This is slightly different because I'm only going back to last year. Yes, the WGC St. Jude was, a no-cut event, roughly the same size of field, but you had a lot of non-PGA Tour players in those. Whereas last year was the first year it was a 70-man field, exactly, 70-man field, the playoffs and all that. So I've only went to last year in terms of course value, and so whatever course value a player has, for example, Russell Henley finished 6th last year, Xander finished 24th, etc., etc. And of course, players who do not have a value here did not play. So that's the second bit of criteria that goes into my rankings. And the last bucket or last factor into my rankings, we are playing DFS, so we are trying to find unique options. So percent owned or projected ownership per Fantasy National is the last part of my rankings. So my rankings go as such for the FedEx St. Jude this week. Russell Henley is my number 1 player. Xander is second. Colin Morikawa third. Scotty fourth. And Rory rounds out my top 5. Aaron Rye, Victor Hovland-ish. Corey Connors, Tom Kim, and Shane Lowry round out my top 10. I'm not really all that interested in Victor Hovland. He is getting propelled by the fact that he was in great form last year, so he played well, finishing tied, T13, and he's very unique, especially compared to everybody around him in my ranking. So he is getting boosted or bolstered by that. I'm not nearly as high on Victor Hovland as it would seem. I'm also not as high on Shane Lowry either, but I would be more confident in Shane Lowry than I would be in Hovland. Other than that, no real surprise in my rankings. You can always argue the ordering. Russell Henley might be a tad bit of a surprise in terms of being number 1. You see, he was really 5th per Fantasy National in the numbers, but he played very well here last year, finishing in the top 10. He's also not wildly owned, so that helps him. Scotty, by the numbers, obviously the number 1 player, but he actually was pretty middling here last year, and being the second most projected owned player also deflates his value just a little bit. But otherwise, again, no real shock here. Aaron Rye coming off the win at the Wyndham. Rory's been playing very well despite the lack of major success. Morikawa has been in great form, and you see all these heavy green statistics for Morikawa, Xander. So no real surprise on much of that. So let's stop the rambling. Let's sort on the price board, figure out, at least per Fantasy National, where our fellow contestants seem to be going, and perhaps some pivots to move off of what seems to be quite a bit of chalk around some areas of the price board. So in the 5 digits, in the 10Ks, this week we have 5 players. Scotty is at 12.4. Xander is at 11.4. Rory is at 11.1. Ludwig Aubert 10.2. Colin Morikawa at 10,000 even. You see, I like all of these players. I'm quite clearly the lowest on Ludwig Aubert, and a lot of that is due to the fact that he just doesn't have a course value. So I always set this number, a little arbitrarily high, just in case a player doesn't acclimate to a course very well the first time. Other than that, all of these players are going to be solid. I am just going to be completely honest with you all on this. I really don't have a strong feeling on who to play and who not to play. I can make an argument for and against a lot of these players in different ways. Scotty's going to be so wildly popular, you can argue to fade him and hope he has a bad week. It's dangerous to do. Same for Morikawa. Morikawa is going to be wildly popular. You can argue to fade him and hope he has a bad week and get your leverage that way. Obear, you can argue you can get a little bit wayward with the driver here. As you can see, good drives gained on Bermuda Rough is pretty poor. He's also not played this course, so we're not entirely sure if he's going to acclimate to it. But honestly, when I've been building my lineups, I've been mixing and matching at the top. I've got a few core plays lower in the price board, which has allowed me to mix and match up here up top. You know, whether I go a Rory and a Morikawa, or maybe I go like a Xander and somebody in the 9Ks, which we'll talk about. I've got a few core plays lower in the price board, and I just don't have a strong feeling on players at the top of the board who you should target and who you should stay away from. I think if I had to choose, I'm probably going to use the least amount of Ludwig Obear, but I'm still going to use him. Like, I'm not shying away from him. And conversely, I think I'm probably going to use the most of Rory, would be my guess. But I'm not, 100% confident like I was in Sung Jae last week to put him in 100% of my lineups. I can envision Rory getting squeezed a little bit in terms of ownership. Players just, or our fellow contestants just, either wanting to pony up for Scotty or maybe save a little bit of money with Obear Morikawa. I could see Xander and or Rory, more than likely Rory, getting squeezed a little bit in terms of ownership and his ownership falling. So I'm most attracted to Rory in the 5 digits, but I'm going to use all 5 of these players. Like, I don't want to give a cop out. I'm just being honest. I don't have a strong feeling on who the winner is, and I don't have a strong feeling on who you should avoid. Again, I think I'm probably lowest on Obear. Probably going to target Rory the most. I will have my fair share of Morikawa for sure. I just don't like the fact that he's the projected most owned player. But I will definitely have some Morikawa. So in the 10Ks, in the 5 digits, I'll go Rory first. Probably Colin second. Xander third. Scotty fourth. And really, it's only about the price and a little bit of the ownership that makes him fourth for me. I'm going to play Scotty. Don't get me wrong. This is not a fade. And I'm going to play Obear, even though he's fifth for me in the 5 digits. I'm just probably lowest on him. So moving into the 9s, we have Tommy, Patrick Cantlay, Victor Hovland, Hideki, Corey Connors, and Russell Henley. You see all 6 of these players rate out extremely high. I'm actually going to full fade Hideki. I don't like the irons here. I think Morikawa is a good chalk. We got to eat. Same with Henley. So we'll talk about Henley here in a moment. I do like Morikawa. This just seems like it fits him very, very well. Again, top 15 last year here. So I do like that line of thinking. We are going to have to try and find some uniqueness somewhere, Awaken. But I'm generally in agreement with you in that line of thinking, using a lot of Morikawa, or at least our fair share of Morikawa. Decky without his caddy and coaches this week too, yes. So thanks to some others, other pundits in the industry and whatnot, Hideki is without his coach, his swing coach, and his caddy this week due to some complications and some unfortunate circumstances at the Olympics. So they are back. His caddy and coaches are in Japan, having to essentially redo or re-get their passports. If Decky wins, I will lose. That's where I'm at. But even if he had his regular coaches and caddies, you see his irons have not been very good lately. They haven't been horrible. They haven't been very good. They haven't been Hideki-like. And in a field like this, on a course like this, you're going to have to hit your irons very, very well. So I would have been full fading Hideki even without the caddy and coach situation. I'm also going to full fade Victor Hovland. The numbers really, really like him. He's very unique. He also, top 15 this last year. So if these two players play well, I will lose. But Victor is in no form right now. I mean, he is just not playing well. You see the good drives gains, not necessarily as bad as what I highlighted with Ludwig Aubert, but it still hasn't been good. Hovland is his around the green struggles have returned. He is not very good putting on Bermuda. The par threes, he is next to last in this field in par three scoring, and par threes are going to play a decent factor since there's not a lot of par fives to take advantage of. I'm just out on Victor. I know he rates out 7th. Again, that's why I wanted to emphasize in the reveal of my rankings, he's really getting bolstered by the fact that his ownership is so low. But I'm just not there with Victor. And, of course, Hideki is a full fade. The other 4 in the 9Ks I like to some varying degrees. Tommy's probably going to be popular, but I do like Tommy. And you see he finished 3rd. I also like Cantley this week. He was runner-up here last year. Not wildly owned, wildly popular. Has his fair share. Cantley has sneakily been playing a little bit better. His irons have been a little bit better lately as well. And the one thing you can always say about Patrick Cantley, now this is on par 70s, but the one thing you can say about Cantley is he generally knows how to score. So I do like Cantley. I'm going to be a little bit cautious with it, but I do like Cantley this week. And then Connors and Russell Henley are going to be very popular for good reason. I like both of these players. I'm obviously going to use Russell Henley, rated out 1st in my rankings. I like Corey Connors here as well. This sets up well for Corey Connors. You got to be accurate. You can't be extremely short off the tee. And Connors isn't extremely short, but you don't need to be long either. You need to be accurate, and you need to have some good iron play. That's Corey Connors to a tee. The one thing that is worrisome about Corey Connors is the putter. He hasn't been great, but these greens are pretty easy to putt, so I'm not scared of horrendous putters like Connors, like Finau, who we'll talk about in the 8s, players of that ilk. I'm not really concerned with bad putters, and Corey Connors around the green play has been much better lately. It's generally not good, but it's been better lately. He also scores well on par 3. So I like Connors, I like Henley. I would use Henley more than Connors if I had to choose, but I'm going to have my fair share of both of these. So in the 9Ks, I'm going to have a little bit of Tommy. I have a little bit of Patrick Cantlay, hoping he's going to be a little bit more unique. Completely out on Hovland and Hideki. Hideki was an easy full fade for me. I am a little tad bit worried about Hovland because the numbers like him so much. But, man, he has no current form, and that's what I'm going to use as my reasoning for fading Hovland is the no current form. Connors and Henley are fine, very popular. It's going to be very difficult, to Awaken's point, it's going to be very difficult to play a Morikawa and a Henley or a Morikawa and a Connors unless you have some ace in the hole really unique option. I mean, if you play Morikawa Connors or Morikawa Henley, you are setting yourself up for a 44. That's very hard to win that way. I like both of these players, just don't know if you're going to be able to use them together in mini lineups. Or if you do, you're going to just have to hammer it. I play multiple lineups, so you would have to play Morikawa and Henley or Morikawa and Connors in 75% plus of your lineups, and I like enough players around them that I'm just not going to do that. So I'm going to have to choose in my lineups whether I'm going Morikawa or Connors/Henley. All right, moving to the 8s. Surprisingly, an area of the price board that I really, really like this week. and I haven't for the past 2 or 3 tournaments. Tom Kim, top 10 in my rankings. Finished top 25 here last year, but he's been in good form lately. He also scores very well on par 70s. Hits plenty of fairways. Tony Finau, he was a disaster here last year. Hard to argue that anyone's in much better form. He's number 2 in irons. I'm not overly concerned with the fairways. It could be an issue, sure, but not very many players have the combination of, top 10 or even top 5 irons and top 10 around the green. Tony Finau's been pretty darn good tee to green. Yes, it's the putter that generally holds him back. Again, like I said, these greens are pretty easy once you are on them, so I'm not terribly worried about that. I really like Tony Finau this week. He's going to be a little bit popular, sure, but it's fine. Yes, Sung Jae was a little bit of a disappointment last week. Don't care. Back on Sung Jae's bandwagon this week. Not going to be 100% in my lineups like he was last week, but I like Sung Jae. I think he's going to be fine. Hey, Darnell, thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Hopefully you've had a good week. You've been here all week, so much appreciated. Hopefully we are ready for the St. Jude, and we can iron out any last-minute questions for you. But good to see you this evening in the chat. I like Sung Jae. It's fine. I'm not worried about his lackluster performance at the Wyndham. I'm not really worried about a lot of players' performance last week at the Wyndham, as we'll talk about. So in the upper 8s, I'm on all 3 of these players. Kind of considering it an extension of the 9s, to be honest with you. I like all 3 of these. They're going to be popular, but good baseball week, good deal. Going to run it up in the PGA. That's the goal. But nicely done with your baseball this week. I know Pop's Call, he's been on a heater. He's had 2 straight winners on the PGA Tour, and his baseball's done well. I don't think he did well last night, but he's done well with baseball as well. Elsewhere in the 8s, the only other player that I'm kind of interested in is Aaron Rai, but he's going to be so wildly popular. Like I did last week, I was light on Aaron Rai. I used him. I was light on him because I knew it'd be popular. He ends up winning it. So again, he's going to be popular this week. It's fine. Number 1 in fairways, number 1 in good drives, 5th in irons. It's going to be popular. It's a decent play, but just like last week, I'm going to try and limit my use of him because I know how popular he's going to be. Have Rory, Obear, and Scheffler in the main lineup on Super Draft. So that means you're going to be bargain hunting or dumpster diving, which I think there are quite a few plays in the 6Ks that are, at least on DraftKings pricing, that are worthwhile. So I don't hate that. I don't know if I would do all 3, but I am certainly I certainly approve of the kind of superstar super scrubs lineup build, and of course Yahoo has much different pricing than DraftKings. So Rye's minimum price, Thompson's minimum price. So like I said, I like Rye. He's just going to be very popular, at least for DK. If he's minimum price on Yahoo, that just seems pretty easy to play him. And we'll talk about Thompson in the 7s. But yeah, in the 8s, I like the upper 8s quite a bit. So I've treated these players as an extension of the 9Ks, essentially. The only other player I'm interested in is Aaron Rai in the 8s. No thanks on Tagala. I know he played well here last year, but he just scares me with how wayward he can get off the tee. Same with Sam Burns, how wayward he can get off the tee and all the water danger here. Justin Thomas might be worth a look. And the reason I say this is that, remember that these are Zoysia fairways. Zoysia is a very unique grass type. Zoysia fairways. The last time the PGA Tour was on Zoysia fairways was the PGA Championship at Valhalla. Justin Thomas finished in the top 10. Now, you can argue, the hometown crowd maybe fed into him a little bit, but Justin Thomas can play some Zoysia fairways. And these are Zoysia fairways. I am mentioning it for your information. Do with that what you will. I don't think it is completely... I don't think you're giving anything away by considering a Justin Thomas this week. A lot of times I have not liked Justin Thomas for a little while. I would not be surprised to see him play well. He has won here twice when it was a WGC as well. So he knows Zoysia fairways. He knows TPC Southwind. But otherwise in the 8Ks, no thanks. Like Billy Horschel, if you really want to lean into the putting, okay. But I think honestly I would prefer Sam Burns if you really want to lean into the putting. Tagala scares me a little bit. You just can't play everybody. He didn't rate out all that well. No thanks on Cam Young. And I'm not nearly as high on Shane Lowry as the rankings might say. I know he avoids bogeys pretty well and such, but I don't see this as a good fit for Shane Lowry. I was right last week at the Wyndham. I didn't feel like it was a good fit at Sedgefield for Lowry, and he missed the cut. So I just don't have a good feeling on Lowry. So there's a look at the 8s. Move to the 7s, the upper 7s. This is an area of the price board that's kind of dead for me. I will sneak in some Adam Scott. I don't hate Adam Scott this week. This feels like it would be a good Brian Harman fit, but he hasn't really played well here, even when they were WGCs. He really just hadn't played well here. So I'll have him maybe once. I'm not in love with it. I'm much more like Adam Scott in the upper 7s, but really this whole area is just kind of dead. Wyndham Clark's in no form at all. Fitzpatrick's in no form at all. Spieth and his wrist, no thanks. This is not a good fit for Ben On. I know he's really good off the tee, but you see the fairways last in fairways gained. You got to be in the fairway this week. He's also not the greatest putter in the world, which doesn't help him. Par 4 scoring's bad. So I don't want any part of that. Max Homa is searching. He's lost right now. No thanks. J-Day. A lot of times J-Day saves himself with the putter, but even on Fast Bermuda, he hadn't been very good. He didn't play this well last year. No thanks on J-Day. So, other than Adam Scott and maybe a sprinkle of Brian Harman, the upper 7s to me are dead. It's a no-go zone for me. Just out. Now, the lower 7s are a different story. We'll talk about Sepp Straka. He didn't play well here last year. That's fine. Top 10 in irons in this field. Almost top 10 in fairways. Good drives gained. He's fine. Par 3 scoring is good. He's a much better putter on Bermuda than what has been showing here. Look at his win at the Honda. That is fast and even lightning Bermuda. So wouldn't worry about him. I like Sepp Straka quite a bit. He is getting some steam, so be aware of that. But I do like Sepp Straka. Davis Thompson's in great form right now, but I do worry a little bit because he has problems scoring, particularly when he doesn't have par 5s to take advantage of. He's a very good par 5 performer, but you see birdies gained when on par 70s, which are generally only 2 par 5s, he has a little bit of trouble. Now, he is the number 1 around the green player, so there's enough to like here, but he's also getting a lot of steam as well. So I can comfortably fade a Davis Thompson. I know, Darnell, you mentioned that he was minimum price on Yahoo. He's not minimum price on DK, so that's why he's a pretty easy fade for me in that regard. But I also have a little bit of concerns with Davis Thompson. Batia, okay, I guess. I get a little queasy with Batia on a course like this. Again, he had not played Sedgefield very well. Missed the cut last week, which was, another, I guess, feather in the cap for me that I was off of Batia. TPC Southwind's a lot like Sedgefield in the sense that you got to be pretty darn accurate off the tee. You have to have good irons. Batia's been, kind of mediocre with the irons lately, in the immediacy. So, kind of off Batia. I like Seabez. I don't love it, but I like it. It's fine, I think. He's got to be much more accurate with the driver, but I think he will be this week. He's very good around the green, and he's a very good putter, Seabez. So I like Seabez. I'm back on Siwoo. If I wasn't afraid of Sung Jae, played all the Sung Jae last week, literally all the Sung Jae last week, I'm back on Siwoo. He can burn me twice. That's fine. Again, I think this sets up very similarly to Sedgefield. Third in fairways. Decent enough with the irons. He also has played well here. Played well here last year. Played well here when they were WGCs. Top 15 in good drives. A lot of the same reasons I liked Siwoo last week, I like him this week, and at least for Fantasy National, the Fantasy National members are completely off of Siwoo, so he's going to be very unique. So I like Siwoo this week. I'm willing to go back to that well. I also like Alex Noren. Number one putter on fast Bermuda greens. Good around the green. Fairly unique at right at 10%, maybe even sub 10%. He avoids bogeys. Has a little bit of trouble scoring, sure, but avoids bogeys. So I like Noren. I like Siwoo a lot more. I like Seabez more than Noren, but I like Noren. Should be fine. And don't ignore Taylor Pendrith. I wouldn't go crazy with it. He's got some really horrendous looking statistics. The irons are fine. He actually avoids bogeys pretty well. So I would give a slight nod to Taylor Pendrith. So as much as I am off of the upper sevens, like this is just a dead zone for me, I love the low sevens. Straka and Thompson, like Thompson's a little bit worrying. Straka's fine. I like Straka. He's just popular. Seabez, Siwoo, Noren. I'm going to use plenty of all three of those guys. I'm going to use a lot of Siwoo. But plenty of all three of these guys. I'll even sprinkle some Taylor Pendrith. Not necessarily there with Bobby Mack or Keegan or Minwoo Lee or Zalatoris. Like these, at the very bottom of the sevens, I'm not there. But in the 71, 72, 73, particularly 72 and 73, I'm there. Maybe not so much Batia, but just highlighting that range for you. Moving to the 6Ks, there are a handful of players I would like to mention to you all that you can use to round out your lineups this week. First is at 6,900, Max Grazerman. He's getting a little bit of steam per Fantasy National, but we saw what he did at the Wyndham. He played extremely well, the collapse notwithstanding. I mean, the irons have been okay. He scores on par fours, which you have to do around TBC Southwind. You saw he scored well around Sedgefield as a par 70. So I do like Grazerman. He's getting a little bit of steam. Eric Cole, I'm back on. He's getting a lot more steam than I would have thought from being 6,700. But, he finished 7th last week at Sedgefield. So I like Eric Cole. I don't like this ownership. So I've got a form of a wager on him. So that can be my exposure to him. I did want to mention him because I do think he will play well this week. But he's getting a little bit of popularity. Same with Ben Griffin. I wanted to like Ben Griffin quite a bit. But, man, he's getting a lot of popularity at 11.5% per Fantasy National. But 4th in irons? My goodness. Also good putter on fast Bermuda. Around the greens, okay. Off the tee is his big worry. So I'm not terribly concerned with it. He will score. So I like Griffin. I don't like the ownership. 2 other players that I want to mention. We'll start with Victor Paris. Top 25 in this very good field in irons. It's plenty of fairways. If he misses the fairway, it could be rough, quite literally. But scores well enough, avoids bogeys well enough. I like a little bit of Victor Paris this week, and he's probably the mad scientist play, would be my guess, considering he is only 6% owned. It's kind of a toss-up, depending on who you think is going to be the least owned, who the mad scientist play is. It's either Victor Paris or like I talked about with Sung Jae and Siwoo, I'll go right back to the well with Brendan Todd. I like a lot of Brendan Todd this week. The irons haven't been good, sure, but fairways, good drives. Guy keeps the ball in play. There's a lot of water around TBC Southwind. He will keep the ball in play. With Alex Noren, the number one putter on fast Bermuda greens, I like Brendan Todd quite a bit this week. And so I will use plenty of Brendan Todd as well. That is a look at the price board where at least members of Fantasy National seem to be going, and some players we can pivot to in some of these price ranges. Let's start making some lineups. We're going to start with tiers contests, then move on to Classic and our big GPPs. So for those who play tiers contests, Tier 1, Scotty, Xander, Rory. For me, I might actually take Rory. Try to get a little bit of uniqueness off of Scotty here. I do like Rory. It's between Rory and Scotty for me. But I think I'll go with Rory in Tier 1. Tier 2, Ludwig, Colin Morikawa, Fleetwood, Cantley, and Hideki. I'll go with Morikawa, I guess. I don't like the ownership. I imagine he'll be very popular in the tiers contest. Partially why I went with Rory, to try to gain some amount of uniqueness. I will go with Morikawa. I think Tommy's fine. I think Cantley's fine. I'm just more confident in Morikawa in Tier 2. Tier 3, Victor Hovland, Connors, Henley, Tom Kim, Sung Jae. Damn it. Can I skip Colin Morikawa and just take two of these? I mean, other than Hovland, I like all four of these players. Yeah, I like all four of these players. If I had to narrow it down, I think I would make Tom Kim fourth by the slimmest of margins. I love Sung Jae this week. Love Henley. I mean, he's the number one player in my rankings. And Connors should be very good this week. So, this is tough. I will probably go Russell Henley in Tier 3. I mean, we're splitting hairs here. I mean, if you have a strong feeling on Connors, Henley, or Sung Jae, play him. I will not try to talk you out of that. And if you have a good, a big, strong feeling on Tom Kim, I think it's fine as well in Tier 3. I think Hovland is a pretty clear fifth out of these. Otherwise, play who you think's the best. I will choose Russell Henley because he's number one in my rankings, but Connors is great. Sung Jae is great. Tom Kim should be really good in Tier 3 as well, but I'll go Henley. Tier 4, Finau, Tagala, Horschel, Justin Thomas, Sam Burns, Aaron Rai, Shane Lowry. Don't ignore Justin Thomas. Don't ignore him. I mean, it's. I know he's rated out one of the lowest in this tier, but as I talked about, the dude loves playing Zoysia fairways, and he's won twice here before. With that said, I'm going to go with Tony Finau, hoping that he is a decent bit more unique than Aaron Rai. Because Aaron Rai is probably the safe play. He's got the highest floor, but probably the lowest ceiling. Whereas I think Tony Finau has a lower floor, but a higher ceiling. So I'll take Tony Finau in Tier 4. But don't ignore Justin Thomas either. Like, if I played multiple tiers lineups, I would probably try to find a way to put Justin Thomas into one of them. Tier 5, we have Cam Young, Wyndham Clark, Fitzpatrick, Adam Scott, Spieth, Harmon, and Ben On. Bleh. Give me Adam Scott. I don't love it, but I hate this tier. No thanks on Cam Young. Wyndham Clark has no form. I have no idea where Matt Fitzpatrick is. Spieth and his wrist injury, no thanks. This is not a good fit for Ben On. You can maybe go Brian Harmon, but I think Adam Scott will be a little bit more unique than Brian Harmon. So give me Adam Scott in Tier 5. Not in love with it. It's between Harmon and Scott. And then Tier 6, Grazerman, McNeely, Dietrich, Hoagie, Cam Davis, Harris English, and Matthew Pavone. Again, another tier that is just, Huh. Cam Davis played well here last year. Maybe. Grazeman, maybe. I don't like a lot of this tier. Ugh. I guess give me Grazerman. But, I mean, if you have a strong feeling on anybody in here, have at it. Because I don't. This tier's construction goes Rory in tier 1, Colin Morikawa tier 2, Russell Henley tier 3, Tony Finau tier 4, go Adam Scott tier 5, and Grazerman tier 6. And hoping that we have enough uniqueness to make it work. All right, with that, let us move to Classic. Try to build some GPP lineups. We're going to figure out how our fellow contestants are building their lineups and then how to maneuver around that. So the first question you have to ask yourself is are my fellow contestants playing or ignoring or fading Scotty Scheffler? Let's do one lineup with and one lineup without Scotty. So if our fellow contestants are playing Scotty, more than likely they're coming down to an Eric Cole or Ben Griffin to make this work. I'll go with Griffin, even though he's a 0.5% less owned, because I think overall Ben Griffin will be more popular. I think Fantasy National is more gravitating towards Eric Cole, but in the grand scheme of things, I think Ben Griffin will be more owned. But even going down into the 6s for Ben Griffin, our fellow contestants really aren't able to go into the 9s except for maybe a Connors or a Henley. And even so, that's going to be pushing it. Like if we go Corey Connors here, like they're hovering in the low 7s the rest of the pricing, which, can be done, but, they're skipping a whole lot up here. A lot of players like Aaron Rye, who's going to be very popular. I always hesitate to give the general public 2 6Ks because I don't think many players are comfortable doing that. If they were willing to go to 2 6Ks, this would make this a whole lot easier to do. But I'm going to try to keep them away from double 6s. So it looks like I really don't think they are able to do a Corey Connors. I think they have to do a Russell Henley and then go Davis Thompson, Akshay, and even this is over by 100 because the other one is Sepp. Yeah, so I mean they're 100 over at 89%. That's pretty high. They have to come off of Henley to maybe a Tom Kim, a Sung Jae. Let's go Tom Kim because I really like Sung Jae. So I'm going to use him in my lineups. But we'll do a Tom Kim. Again, I don't think they're able to go to Aaron Rice. So yeah, this is that same Sepp Straka, Davis Thompson, Akshay Bhatia bottom. Again, if they're willing to go double 6s, it would free them up to go to an Aaron Rye, I think. But this is, close to 90%. Pretty darn good chance you're going to get duplicated here with this lineup. If our fellow contestants aren't going Scotty Scheffler, they might go Rory or Xander, but really the highest projected owned player is Colin Morikawa. So they go Colin, and then they'll hit the 9s with Corey Connors. They'll hit an 8, Aaron Rye, an upper 7, Adam Scott, who I like. Let's throw Brian Harman in for them, I guess. Sepp Straka, Davis Thompson. And this is leaving a little bit of money on the table, 300, but you can see just how popular this lineup is. If our fellow contestants are comfortable avoiding the big 3, Scotty, Xander, Rory. So, extremely, extremely popular. Extremely popular shell of a lineup here. Mix and match here. Connors could easily be Russell Henley. Rye could be, bumped up to Sung Jae and then fall off of Brian Harmon. Mix and match how you think, but that shell of a lineup is going to be extremely popular. So let's figure out how we're going to maneuver around all of that chalk. I'm going to start with a balanced lineup because there's quite a bit in the eights and the upper sevens the nines, the upper eights that I like, that I think we are able to build a fairly unique lineup. It's not the lineup that I'm going to most often, but if you want to get off the Colin Morikawa chalk, you can start with a Tommy Fleetwood. Patrick Cantlay, I think, is going to get squeezed quite a bit in terms of ownership. This can be Tommy. This can be Patrick Cantlay. I'm not there with Victor Hovland. But you can also ignore the Connors and the Hindley. You go down to a Tony Finau. I would use Sung Jae. I know he's a little bit popular, but I would use a Sung Jae. And we have 7,600 here that we can distribute however we wish. I'm not afraid to use a Justin Thomas. And then we're hitting these low sevens that I really, really like. Siwoo, Alex Noren, Taylor Pendrith even. 74%, 74% as opposed to a balanced lineup with Morikawa that was close to a 100% cumulative ownership. You're going to be looking at a very unique lineup in relation to that one. You're taking a little bit of a chance, sure, with going to Cantlay. Maybe you're more confident with Tommy. Maybe you're trying to squeeze in a Ludwig Ober. That's fine. Just mix and match in here. I was just highlighting some more unique options. Again, don't ignore Justin Thomas. If we come off of Justin Thomas to an Adam Scott, you go Tony Finau, Adam Scott. That leaves us 9,400 to where you can go with a Connors or a Hindley. It's going to be slightly more popular. We'll go Hindley this time, and you can do 10-1, which is Colin Morikawa. Let's see how much his ownership jumps it up to. I mean, you're still at sub 80% here, going with a Siwoo down here and Alex Noren. Adam Scott isn't as popular as some of the other players. Going Finau instead of Sung Jae, Finau instead of Tom Kim. So you got some options here, but this is kind of the challenge that I see with this kind of structure of a lineup, particularly Morikawa Hindley, is that you're setting yourself up for a 4v4 or even a 3v3, and it's really, really hard to rise in your big GPPs doing this. If you're playing 50-50s, if you're playing cash games where first place and the last place that cashes are the same, this is probably a pretty solid lineup in that regard. But if you're trying to really, really rise in these big contests, I don't foresee you being able to do that with this kind of shell, especially up here at top. So how are you going to be able to move up in these big GPPs? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to have to take some big chances. Big chances. Like, I'm talking going double sixes, or finding your Siwoo Kim, who's at 5% per Fantasy National. Being comfortable and trying to hit on a Minwoo Lee or Zalatoris, which I'm not. I'm not there. I'm just highlighting. You're gonna have to find a lot of uniqueness, or you're gonna have to build a very unique shell, something to the effect of, like, I'll go Rory, Colin, and I know Colin Morikawa is popular, but I'm fairly confident in him. But you're gonna have to do like a double 10 and a double 6. Like I went all the way down to Brennan Todd. You don't have to, but like a Brennan Todd and a Victor Paris, Brennan Todd and a Max Grazerman, Victor Paris and an Eric Cole. Ben Griffin could also work in this. I'll go with Victor Paris But you're going to have to build a pretty unique shell going superstars and super scrubs. But having done this, we're at 8,200 per player. You could probably get greedy and get to a Connors or a Henley. I'm going to go with a Sung Jae here, which leaves us 77, which is Adam Scott, Brian Harmon. Again, you're at that 80%, but I'd be willing to bet you're going to be pretty darn unique if you're willing to hit double sixes, particularly two very low sixes like these players are. You could also, maybe go even lower. Go to, again, for me, this would be a Siwoo Kim. Maybe go with a Bezadenhout. And 91 is Connors, who I like a lot. That's even a little bit less cumulative ownership because you're off of the Adam Scott and the Finau Sungjae. You're hitting a more unique player in Seabez. So that's another option you have. But the lineup that I am really liking the most is very akin to what won last year. Hey, good evening, Derek. No worries at all about joining late. Glad to see you in chat. Thanks for jumping in. Hopefully you're ready for the FedEx St. Jude. If not, here for a few more minutes. But it's good to see you this evening. The last lineup I'm going to show for you all is akin to what won last year. It's going to play a top player, and it doesn't have to go into the 6Ks, but man, it's ballsy. It's real ballsy. You can maybe make Scotty work. It works better if you have Xander or Rory. I'm going to go with Rory because I'm a little bit higher on Rory than Xander, but to me, I would start with Xander or Rory, whoever you feel more confident with. You might be able to squeeze a Connors or a Henley. For me, I'm going to go with Sungjae at 87. This could be Finau. This could be Tom Kim if you're there. And you round out the rest of this with the sevens. For me, again, I love Siwoo, so I'm going to bottom this team out at Siwoo. Sepp Straka, a little bit more popular, but I think he's going to play well this week. For Darnell, this might be Davis Thompson. You've mentioned him a couple times this week, which I don't hate. He's just very, very popular per Fantasy National. Alex Noren, Adam Scott. Like if you went Adam Scott, you could actually fit in a Wyndham Clark if you're there. I'm not. Fitzpatrick. I was trying to get up to Rye, but really, this is what I'm trying to highlight here. It's just living in the low sevens. There's the Aaron Rye. So you have to come off of Adam Scott. So these are the kind of lineups that I have built the most. Matching Xander and Rory, kind of hovering between those two, alternating, if you will. Alternating between like a Sungjae, a Finau, maybe coming up for a Russell Henley every once in a while. I like Henley a lot. He's just very popular. But I'm living in these low sevens. Straka, Bezadenhout, Siwoo, Alex Noren. I'll even probably put Batia in a lineup or two. I'm not nearly as high on him as others. Taylor Pendrith. I'll put him in some lineups as well. I've been living in these low sevens and mixing and matching up top because I'm just not confident in who I think is up top is going to play the best. So with that, I'll stick around. If anybody has any questions, I'll stick around for a couple minutes. I got a couple questions to answer. How many players outside the top 50 play their way into the BMW? Right now, the winning answer is 1 or 2. That's what happened last year. I believe 2 players played their way into the BMW from the St. Jude. I'm going to say 1 or 2 as well. I would not be surprised if it's 3 or 4, however. But I will say 1 or 2. Am I high on Jake Knapp? No. No, I am not. Rated out one of the lowest for me. Irons have not been there. Not a lot of fairways. The big thing is Jake Knapp takes advantage of par 5s. There's only 2 of them here. Only 2 of them. That's why I have so much emphasis in par 4s and on scoring on par 70s. He doesn't do either of those things well. He's good off the tee, absolutely. And that is a feather in his cap, but he takes advantage of par 5s. There's only 2 of them to be had here. No thanks on Jake Knapp. I will have my fair share of both of those lineups because for me, I am not afraid to go into the 6Ks twice in my lineups. I mentioned Grazerman, Eric Cole, who's getting quite a bit of steam from Fantasy National. I do like Eric Cole, Ben Griffin, Victor Paris, Johnny Vegas is fine. Austin Eckroat should be pretty good. Brendan Todd. So I don't mind doing the double 6s. I think if I had to choose one or the other, I would prefer to do a bunch of low 7s and one top guy. But I will have my fair share of double 10s, double 6s. I am not afraid to go superstars, super scrubs, Derek, this week. I'm not. But I do like a lot, and I mean a lot in the low 7s, and that's why I am more aching to use those lineups. Let's see. Answer that. One and done. I am on the periphery of being promoted. I think it's the top 19 or 20 in your division get promoted at the end of the season. I think I'm like 16th or 17th. Jason Day is low owned because Jason Day has no irons. Hasn't hit a lot of fairway. Nope, that's not him. Par 4s haven't been good. He hasn't played well on par 70s. It's just not good. It's just not good. One and done for me. Like I said, I am close to promotion. I need to have a couple of strong weeks. JJ Spawn came in through in a big way last week for me, finishing T3. T2 or T3? T3, because Grazerman was second. Finishing T3 got me a whole lot of money, considering I was the only one in my division that used JJ Spawn, so I'm really happy with that pick. This week I'm going with Colin Morikawa. I'm not in love with it, but I've used most everybody. Already, so I'll just go with Colin Morikawa. If I change that, I'll let you all know come next week. I've already used Russell Henley. I used him like at the Sony the first week available. I think I've used Connors. I know I've used Rory and Scotty and Xander. So I'll go with Morikawa. This does feel like a good fit for him. Not in love with it, but I've basically used everybody. My mad scientist play is a toss-up. It depends on who you think is going to be more unique. But I kind of gave co-mad scientist plays this week. Victor Paris and Brendan Todd are my 2 mad scientist plays. Victor Paris, if I had to guess, is probably going to be a little bit more popular. Or, a little bit more unique. The irons are pretty good for somebody in the low 6s. Hits plenty of fairways. You can worry about the putter a little bit. That's fine. But these greens are pretty easy to putt. So I like Victor Paris, and I think TPC Southwind sets up a lot like Sedgefield. And I was all over Brendan Todd last week, so I'm going to play him again. I'm going to play Brendan Todd again. I'm playing a whole lot of Siwoo again. I'm playing a whole lot of Sungjae again, although Sungjae's pretty popular. Not afraid of any of those players this week. Rogers, he was really bad here last year. 3rd to worst in terms of irons. There are 70 players. Only Malnati and Taylor Moore have had worse irons in the past 24 rounds. I cannot get there with Patrick Rogers at all. If you're really wanting to get down nitty gritty in the low sixes, extremely low sixes, like I said, I like Brendan Todd. He might be a little bit more popular, but you can also look at Seamus Power. He actually rated out somewhat okay. He just didn't play well here last year. But Seamus Power has actually been in decent form lately. Griot, Griot's a ball striker, so it makes some sense, and he finished 20th here last year. But the thing with Griot is he is just in no form at all. He's been very bad lately, whereas Seamus Power has at least shown some signs of life. But again, if I'm in the lowest of low sixes, I'm just going to Brendan Todd. This sets up so well for Brendan Todd. So I'll just go there. That is where I am at for the week. Again, feel free to jump in with any last minute questions you have. Or if you want to put your predictions out there. Who's your winner this week? Who do you think is a player that's getting a lot of steam that's going to falter? Todd is number one, I think, with Alex Noren in terms of Bermuda putting. Noren, first, and tied with Todd. Yep, that's one of the main reasons I'm going to Todd, is that I know he will putt well. What kind of lineup to build? Yeah, that's why I tried to give you all a few different options. Like I said, I'm not afraid to do double sixes. I know some people really shy away from that, but that's how you're going to get your uniqueness. I think a balanced build actually might be viable as well, Derek. I mean, you're just taking a huge gamble by ignoring the top three if you do that. But I think it could be viable. I think it'll be unique. Thoughts on Hoagie? I don't hate it. The issue with Hoagie, because he is one of the better iron players on a course that emphasizes irons, so I like the thought process there. The issue is he can really, really get wayward. I know this fairways number isn't too bad, but his off the tee game is not strong at all. And because of that, he can really rack up some bogeys. You see the off the tee game there. He can really rack up some bogeys. Despite the fact that he is not a good putter, he's actually been okay on Fast Bermuda. So if you don't like any of the other 6K plays that I've mentioned, I actually don't hate Hoagie. I'm a little wary with all the water on the course, how wayward he can get. But the irons are certainly very, very good for somebody in the 6Ks, so I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I would be much more aching to go to Tom Hoagie than some of these other players that have been thrown out, like Patrick Rogers, like Griot, like these others. I understand the thought process behind the Tom Hoagie thought. How do I feel about Sung Jae and Tom Kim? I love Sung Jae this week. Tom Kim's fine. They're just both popular. If I had to guess, because funnily enough, they're sitting at the same exact projected ownership for Fantasy National. Despite the fact that Tom Kim rated out higher, I'm going to go with Sung Jae if I have to choose between the two, Darnell. Just because I know Sung Jae's in immaculate current form. I know Tom Kim's played well. This is not a knock on Tom Kim by any means. I mean, we're splitting hairs here. But I also know Sung Jae has played this course very well in the past. So by a small margin, I would take Sung Jae over Tom Kim in that scenario. But I like them both. And I'll be playing my fair share of both. Jordan Spieth and Max Homa, I'm going to tell you now, there's a reason why. Spieth, in his wrist injury, he's going to have surgery in the offseason. He's just not healthy. And Max Homa is lost. He is completely lost right now. Fairway's gone. His off the tee number is gone. He's lost his driver. He used to be a pretty darn good putter. He's not there. No, on Max Homa. Like if Homa plays well and you wanted to play him, you can come back next week and cuss me all you want. I'm telling you right now, Max Homa is lost. I want no part of Max Homa. Let's see. Have Corey Connors and Fleetwood. I mean, that's fine. It's just popular. It's just popular. Connors at 16.5. Tommy at 15%. Like in here, I would really think about Patrick Cantlay because I can see him getting squeezed. I can see Patrick Cantlay getting squeezed in terms of ownership, and he's actually been pretty solid the past couple months. I do like Pendrith. I don't like him as much as, say, a Siwoo or an Alex Noren, but when I mentioned how I was in the low sevens, Taylor Pendrith is part of the low sevens. I will be playing a decent amount of Taylor Pendrith. I'm going to guess I will be more than 10% on Taylor Pendrith. I like others more, but I will be playing some Taylor Pendrith, yes. All right, we've run quite a bit over time, and I still need to get over to Gabe's Substack chat, which, again, reminder, if you are not subscribed to his article, you are really, really missing out. His handle is in the description. Go give him a follow and subscribe to his article. It is free to do. I want to thank P, Darnell, an Awaken, and Derek for jumping into chat. Is this a fade Grazerman week? I'm going to play him. I can understand the fade because he's actually getting a little bit of popularity per Fantasy National. But I'm going to play him a little bit. A little. But thanks to you four to jumping in chat. And thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. Love what I do. Taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you statistician and data analyst's view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. It has been a pretty darn solid month for yours truly and for the community at large. And we're going to try to keep that momentum for the start of the FedEx playoffs for the PGA Tour. Again, I'm going to be over in Gabe's Substack chat here momentarily. Suggest that you follow us on over there. It's a lot of good information, very entertaining, very informative. But thank you for all the support. I really do appreciate it week in and week out that you all come back every week and support the channel. So for all the wagers you've made this week for the FedEx St. Jude, for all the DFS contests you play this week for the FedEx St. Jude, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.